Gamer Edition Starscream is a pretty weird figure, but before we start talking about it, I just want to brag that I got him for only $15. For some reason, Target was selling these for $15. I think it was like a mistake or something. If I have the receipt, I'll take a picture of it and yeah, I'll show you guys.
Woo! Yeah, baby!
So yeah, I was really happy that I got him for so cheap, because otherwise I would not have bought him, because I haven't played any of the games. So I'm not too familiar with his design, but looking at the concept art and just looking at pictures in general, I can tell that this is a bit off, especially in the chest area. The chest does look pretty wide, which contributes to the fact that his proportions are sort of funky. He has a really wide chest, as I said before, but he also has really thin arms, like especially from the side profile. And he has really thick legs. That just combines to make a really strange looking robot mode. Given that I am pretty used to strange looking figures, this is completely okay with me, but I understand why some of you guys might think it's weird. And not gonna lie, I do think the older figure did this better. Like just in terms of looks wise, because this looks very thick. But I still like it in my opinion. Getting in on a closer look, you can see he has mostly plain details. Everything about him is pretty flat. There's not much sculpting detail going on with the figure, especially on the side of the thighs. As you can see, they are just flat. The plain detailing and the strange design and colors really make it have a unique aesthetic. But key points of sculpting that I'd like to point out is that the arms are sculpted pretty nicely, especially on the inside of the forearm. I think that's pretty cool. And I like the sculpting on the neck things. You can see those little dots. I think that brings out a lot. Even though the plain detail might be intentional, I don't like it. I just sort of wish he had more sculpting. Combining how thick he is and just how plain his detailing is, just make him seem too blocky, in my opinion. And like too... In addition to the lack of sculpting, his paint is unfortunately also lacking. He has just silver paint in two places, the forearm and the head. But speaking of the head, it is sculpted pretty nicely, I think. His chin is a bit pointy. Not sure how accurate that is, but I think it's sculpted pretty nicely. And the eyes are picked out in this nice red. And I do like the shaping around the face, like the helmet. I think that's pretty cool. I just think his chin, again, is way too thin. In terms of paint in other areas, it's just the red here and here. It's sort of like a blank canvas. It's blocky, it's plain, and it's flat, which is not really a good thing. But if it's accurate, I guess I have to take it all back. And yeah, I apologize if this is accurate and intentional. But according to the picture, it doesn't seem like it's accurate. This looks so much cooler. Please subscribe, by the way. I just don't know why they made this so wide. It looks so strange, like a really thick carrot or something. Another thing about this figure that is thick is the weapon. So he includes a big mace and a really long gun. So the mace, for some reason, can detach into two parts, but it is sculpted very nicely actually. And I really like this metallic purple paint. I do think the mace is very cool. I'm not gonna lie, it is pretty heavy, so it does weigh down the figure sometimes. And another negative about it is just that you can only hold it from the end. There's no way to hold it like closer, so it does look like he's holding a balloon or an ice cream cone. He also comes with a really long rifle, which is sculpted very nicely. It is completely unpainted though, but it's fine. I really like the way this weapon looks as well. He can hold it in his hand, or you can remove his right forearm and then plug in the gun into that tab, which I know this idea can work, I've seen it work, but in this case, it looks like a stick. It's so skinny. The lack of the forearm makes it look so spindly. It looks like a string coming off of his arm. It doesn't work in this case, and I prefer for him just to hold it. But he can get into some really cool poses using those weapons, where you can use his ball joints in the head, which allows him to rotate all the way around, can look up that far, and he can look down that far. His arms can spin all the way, can go out that far. There's a swivel above the bicep, a double jointed bicep, a swivel at the wrist, a sort of restricted waist swivel. He can kick out that far, back that far, and out to the side by this much. He has a knee bend and a nice pivot. Poseability on Gamer Edition Starscream is pretty good actually. He has all the joints you need, and with a lot of range too. There's nothing restrictive about his poseability, and you have a lot of mobility to just mess around with him. Additionally, the fact that his feet are so wide allows him to be really stable, which makes it a really nice figure to just pose. As you can see, he's very good at balancing himself due to the nice feet design. Even though it is not a traditional foot, I actually like the design of this a lot. And I appreciate the little extra plastic they have so you can cover up the gap when you tilt his ankle. I think that's very thoughtful. Going back to sculpting, as I said before, pretty much all of it is plain, but for some reason, his crotch is detailed the most out of the entire figure. I wish they did this amount of detail for the rest of the figure. The figure that's the exact opposite of this is my previous review. As you guys know, I really like the sculpting on this figure, but the crotch is plain. So it is the exact opposite. And while I have him, let's do the size comparison. Here is Starscream with Bumblebee movie Thundercracker and Studio Series Starscream. And he is quite short in terms of a Voyager class. I think Gamer Edition Starscream is on the shorter side of Voyager classes in general. And here is him with a leader class. He dwarfs Starscream, not gonna lie. And talking about his backpack, it is okay. I really have no issues with this backpack. It is pretty nice. It's not that big, and it really does look pretty cool. And I like how the wings are shaped up here. The weapons can also store on this backpack. Other than the weird design, I really have no issues with it. And speaking about the weird design, the jet mode is also pretty weird. So let's see how that fares. Transformation was actually pretty fun, not gonna lie. It's due to how thick this guy is. All these steps were nice and satisfying. I do have fun transforming him back and forth, and I do like it. The only issue I really have with the transformation is the arms. It is quite difficult to peg the arms into place, but other than that, I'm really fine with the transformation. There's nothing that bad about it. The jet mode we end up with is, it's something. I know it's based off the version where it's on the ground, so it's the non-flying version, but just, I don't know. It is pretty strange. The first thing that stands out to me is this like really weird gap. There's like a hole and it just makes it feel incomplete. I don't know, I just wish they would have added something here. And it gets worse when you look at it from the top, where you have this gaping gap here. I know for the old figure, his head is meant to go here, but they changed it to go inside here, which I'm not too sure if that was the best option. Because if you put the head here, it does fill in the gap. You're not really gonna see the head because it's the back of it. Also, them putting the head in the cockpit means that they had to enlarge this, which, as you guys know, I think is pretty weird. I do prefer the front bit of the old toy. I guess you can get used to it over time. The back is pretty nice. I do like the shaping of this. I'm okay with how small the wings are. I think back here, it does look pretty cool, like this area. It's just that this tacked on just ruins the entire silhouette, I think. Very weirdly proportioned. The front is so thin and skinny and flat and stretched, and then the back is so thick and chunky and wide. It just doesn't fit in my opinion. But he does have some nice paint apps, where on the wings you can see a Decepticon symbol and the silver paint here. And on the back as well, there's a nice Decepticon logo. I like the fact that the feet form the thrusters. I do think it's very convincing, which is very nice. It is the weirdest jet I own, where for example here is him next to Starscream, Thundercracker, Elita Class, and Optimus Primal. The weapons can store on the back though, just by plugging it in onto the top, and it just adds to the weirdness of this vehicle mode. Let's move on to the conclusion. Rebel mode is okay. I do admit the design has grown on me, but it's not the best. It's very chunky and it could be sculpted and painted better. I think the chest area really is just the major turnoff. The jet mode is quite weird as well. It is just an overall weird figure. But I don't really see any point in buying this over other Voyager figures. Or even over the original toy as well. Not gonna lie, I think the original toy looks better in both modes. So I can't really recommend this. Unless you find it for $15 like me.